storm. Be prepared first. First Alert Weather.
Today on the list, easy and healthy.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good evening, and we're coming back on the air for what will be a powerful moment in Washington, an historic moment. The first wartime leader since Winston Churchill addressing the U.S. Congress. President Zelensky from Ukraine to address Congress and the American people at this hour. Let's go live to the House. Zelensky about to address this joint meeting of Congress, Americans watching across the nation. There you see Vice President Kamala Harris, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Major Garrett in the nation's capital. In just a few moments, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address a rare joint meeting of Congress. It will mark the end of a dramatic day here in Washington. This is Zelensky's first trip outside of Ukraine since the Russian invasion began exactly 300 days ago. And it comes just a day after Zelensky met face-to-face with troops on the front lines. Earlier today, Zelensky visited the White House, met with President Biden and key members of his national security team. The president promised more military aid, including at least one long-sought Patriot surface-to-air missile system. Mr. Biden said the U.S. will stand with Ukraine, quote, as long as it takes. Tonight's speech is a chance for the Ukrainian leader to thank Congress and, not incidentally, American taxpayers for their support. And it comes at a time when Russia has been pounding the Ukrainian power grid, plunging millions of Ukrainian civilians into the cold and dark of winter. Lawmakers later this week are set to vote on a year-end spending package that includes roughly $45 billion in additional emergency assistance to Ukraine. Tonight's speech is in the House chamber, as you can see.
In the last few minutes, that prior to this speech, that the president did meet with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, with the Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, and with Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, the Democratic and Republican leaders of the United States Senate, in a private meeting. You would have to imagine in that meeting, Zelensky gave them a very clear and sober perspective as to what exactly the situation like on the ground in Ukraine, and express the need for the U.S. to continue to support that war effort. So this is going to be an important moment for the Ukrainian president as we move forward in this conversation about the level of U.S. involvement, and specifically the amount that U.S. taxpayers are willing to pay for this effort. It's really not just these members of Congress that he needs to convince here tonight, Lester. It's also the American people that will be watching on a nationally televised broadcast. Many Americans who may have been checked out of this situation in Europe and just how dangerous it is. So there's no doubt that he has a big, big responsibility here tonight, and that there is a lot on the line for the Ukrainian president and the people of Ukraine as he comes here to Washington during this very pivotal time for his country. Lester?
As we await President Zelensky to enter the chamber, let me ask you, Ryan, we heard President Biden today talk several times. He noted the bipartisan nature of the American support for the Ukraine's war effort. Do we know if the White House suggested this idea of speaking before Congress?
So the way we understand it, Lester, is that it was the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who extended the invitation to Vladimir Zelensky. She has been someone that has been very supportive of his efforts in Ukraine. She has been one of the chief negotiators in this process, who has worked hard to make sure that the funding is secured for Ukraine and the people there. She, of course, is exiting as the Speaker of the House in the next couple of weeks. She's going to remain in Congress, but she'll no longer be part of Democratic leadership. So it is significant that she will be presiding over her last joint session of Congress, a joint meeting of Congress, I should say, in particular. So this is a significant moment for her. So the idea that, you know, that the president would come here and not just meet with President Biden, but also come here to Capitol Hill and make a specific plea to the appropriators. You know, it is Congress who decides how the American taxpayers' money is spent. That is certainly symbolic and understanding of how the process works here in the United States. And I should point out, Lester, that I talked to a number of senators, both Republican and Democrat, who said that it's one thing to listen to the dispatches in meetings from American diplomats, even from intelligence officers, about what the situation is like in Ukraine in some static conference room here on Capitol Hill. It is much different to look into the eyes of the man who's at the front lines of this situation, someone who was on the front lines of this war just yesterday, and to get a clear understanding of just how difficult things are there and how important and necessary this funding is. It makes a much different situation than it would if you're just continuing to get these briefings. So I think that is also a big part of it. We should also point out, though, Lester, that there's going to be many Republicans who probably need to hear this message the most that just aren't going to be here. Representative Tom Massey, for instance, who is a member of the Freedom Caucus, someone who is not in favor of the extended Ukrainian spending, just tweeted out moments ago that he would not be in attendance, and he describes Zelensky as a lobbyist for Ukraine, as opposed to being the president of this country in the middle of a war. So this is not going to be a difficult ask for the lion's share of Congress. Most Republicans and Democrats are in support of this effort, but there is a small and very influential group of Republicans that believe that this spending needs to be reined in on some level.
Yeah, Ryan, and we're just seeing a glimpse there of President Zelensky, who is being introduced now, making his way down the aisle, and as we expected, greeting some of the lawmakers here who were in attendance of this joint meeting of Congress. He has enjoyed a broad American support, but as Ryan noted, not entire support within the U.S. Congress, as the appetite for, as we've heard before, an open checkbook, perhaps not checkbook, not exactly what we have seen in the past. Historic moment. This is the first time that he has left his country since the war that we're aware of, making this trip under massive security blanket for obviously fear for his safety, getting out of Ukraine, getting to the U.S. He arrived at Joint Base Andrews aboard a U.S. aircraft, U.S. military VIP aircraft today, and now standing and silent as a standing ovation is sent his way. As we watch Peter Alexander, our chief White House correspondent, standing by with us. Before he speaks, perhaps you can give a sense of what the White House read was on today's several hours of meetings between the two presidents.
Yeah, Lester, we're going to hear from Volodymyr Zelensky in a matter of moments, so I'll be very brief here, but it's just a striking image to see him in his military green in a room of American politicians, a man who was literally 24 hours removed from the battlefield this time yesterday, was in eastern Ukraine on the front lines, and now just completed a visit with President Biden at the White House, private time in the Oval Office, delivering remarks here as well, and an opportunity he has communicated to say thanks to the American people. A really powerful and moving day that, frankly, 10 months ago, very few people in the U.S., including many within the administration, frankly, did not think would come, that Volodymyr Zelensky could bring his country to this place where it had fended off Russia for much of the last year. Lester?
All right, Peter.
Members of Congress.
I think it's too much.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, President of the Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's too much for me. All this for our great people. Thank you so much. Dear Americans, in all states, cities, and communities, all those who value freedom and justice, who cherish it as strongly as we Ukrainians, in all our cities, in each and every family. I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart. Madam Vice President, I thank you for your efforts in helping Ukraine. Madam Speaker, you bravely visited Ukraine during the full-fledged war. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you. Great privilege to be here. Dear members of the Congress, representatives of both parties who also visited Kyiv, esteemed congressmen and senators from both parties who will visit Ukraine, I'm sure, in the future. Dear representatives of diaspora, present in this chamber and spread across the country, dear journalists. It's a great honor for me to be at the U.S. Congress and speak to you and all Americans. Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Thank you. And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world. We have no fear, nor should anyone in the world have it. Ukraine's gained this victory, and it gives us courage, which inspires the entire world. Americans gained this victory, and that's why you have succeeded in uniting the global community to protect freedom and international law. Europeans gained this victory, and that's why Europe is now stronger and more independent than ever. The Russian tyranny has lost control over us. And it will never influence our minds again. Yet, we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that countries of the Global South also gain such victory. I know one more, I think, very important thing. The Russians will stand a chance to be free only when they defeat the Kremlin in their minds. Yet, the battle continues, and we have to defeat the Kremlin on the battlefield. Yes, this battle is not only for the territory, for this or another part of Europe. The battle is not only for life, freedom, and security of Ukrainians or any other nation which Russia attempts to conquer. This struggle will define in what world our children and grandchildren will live, and then their children and grandchildren. It will define whether it will be a democracy of Ukrainians and for Americans for all. This battle cannot be frozen or postponed. It cannot be ignored, hoping that the ocean or something else will provide a protection. From the United States to China, from Europe to Latin America, and from Africa to Australia, the world is too interconnected and interdependent to allow someone to stay aside and at the same time to feel safe when such a battle continues. Our two nations are allies in this battle. And next year will be a turning point. I know it, the point when Ukrainian courage and American resolve must guarantee the future of our common freedom, the freedom of people who stand for their values. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, yesterday before coming here to Washington, D.C., I was at the front line in our Bakhmut, in our stronghold in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass. The Russian military and mercenaries have been attacking Bakhmut non-stop since May. They have been attacking it day and night, but Bakhmut stands. Last year, 70,000 people lived there in Bakhmut, in this city, and now only few civilians stay. Every inch of that land is soaked in blood. Roaring guns sound every hour. Trenches in the Donbass change hands several times a day in fierce combat and even hand fighting, but the Ukrainian Donbass stands. Russians use everything they have against Bakhmut and our beautiful cities. The occupiers have a significant advantage in artillery. They have an advantage in ammunition. They have much more missiles and planes than we ever had. And it's true, but our defense forces stand. And we all are proud of them. The Russians' tactic is primitive. They burn down and destroy everything they see. They send thugs to the front lines. They send convicts to the war. They threw everything against us, similar to the other tyranny, which is in the Battle of the Bulge. Threw everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces this Christmas. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender. So here is the front line. The tyranny which has no lack of cruelty against the lives of free people. And your support is crucial, not just to stand in such fight, but to get to the turning point to win on the battlefield. We have artillery. Yes. Thank you. We have it Is it enough? Honestly, not really. To ensure Bakhmut is not just a stronghold that holds back the Russian army, but for the Russian army to completely pull out, more cannons and shells are needed. If so, just like the Battle of Saratoga, the fight for Bakhmut will change the trajectory of our war for independence and for freedom. If your patriots stop the Russian terror against our cities, it will let Ukrainian patriots work to the full to defend our freedom. When Russia cannot reach our cities, but its artillery, it tries to destroy them with missile attacks. More than that, Russia found an ally in this genocidal policy, Iran. Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies. If we do not stop them now, we must do it. I believe there should be no taboos between us in our alliance. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves. Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way. Russia could stop its aggression, really, if it wanted to, but you can speed up our victory. I know it. And it will prove to any potential aggressor that no one can succeed in breaking national borders, no one committing atrocities and reigning over people against their will. Be naive to wait for steps towards peace from Russia, which enjoys being a terrorist state. Russians are still poisoned by the Kremlin. The restoration of international legal order is our joint task. We need peace. Yes, Ukraine has already offered proposals, which I just discussed with President Biden, our peace formula, 10 points which should and must be implemented for our joint security, guaranteed for decades ahead. And the summit which can be held, I'm glad to stress that President Biden supported our peace initiative today. Each of you, ladies and gentlemen, can assist in the implementation to ensure that America's leadership remains solid, bicameral, and bipartisan. Thank you. You can strengthen sanctions to make Russia feel how ruinous its aggression truly is. It is in your power, really, to help us bring to justice everyone who started this unprovoked and criminal war. Let's do it. Let terrorists let the terrorist state be held responsible for its terror and aggression and compensate all losses done by this war. Let the world see that the United States are here. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, in 2 days, we will celebrate Christmas, maybe candlelit. Not because it's more romantic, no, but because there will be no electricity. Millions won't have neither heating nor running water. All of these will be the result of Russian missile and drone attacks on our energy infrastructure. But we do not complain. We do not judge and compare whose life is easier. Your well-being is the product of your national security, the result of your struggle for independence and your many victories. We, Ukrainians, will also go through our war of independence and freedom with dignity and success. We'll celebrate Christmas. Celebrate Christmas, and even if there is no electricity, the light of our faith in ourselves will not be put out. If Russian missiles attack us, we'll do our best to protect ourselves. If they attack us with Iranian drones and our people will have to go to bomb shelters on Christmas Eve, Ukrainians will still sit down at the holiday table and cheer up each other. And we don't have to know everyone's wish, as we know that all of us, millions of Ukrainians, wish the same: victory. Only victory. We already built strong Ukraine with strong people, strong army, strong institutions together with you. We developed strong security guarantees for our country and for entire Europe and the world together with you. And also together with you, we'll put in place everyone who will defy freedom. Put in. This will be the basis to protect democracy in Europe and the world over. Now, on the special Christmas time, I want to thank you, all of you. I thank every American family which cherishes the warmth of its home and wishes the same warmth to other people. I thank President Biden and both parties at the Senate and the House for your invaluable assistance. I thank your cities and your citizens who supported Ukraine this year, who hosted our Ukrainians, our people, who waved our national flags, who acted to help us. Thank you all, from everyone who is now at the front line, from everyone who which is, I think, so good for this moment. The American people in their righteous might
Good evening. I'm Brett Baer. Welcome to those just joining this Fox News coverage. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now addressing a joint meeting of Congress as his country attempts to repel a Russian invasion with U.S. help. Let's listen in.
I know that everything depends on us, on Ukrainian armed forces, yet so much depends on the world. So much in the world depends on you. When I was in Bakhmut yesterday, our heroes gave me the flag, the battle flag, the flag of those who defend Ukraine, Europe, and the world at the cost of their lives. They asked me to bring this flag to you, to the U.S. Congress, to members of the House of Representatives and senators whose decisions can save millions of people. So let these decisions be taken. Let this flag stay with you, ladies and gentlemen. This flag is a symbol of our victory. In this war, we stand, we fight, and we will win because we are united. Ukraine, America, and the entire free world. Just one thing, if I can, the last thing, thank you so much. May God protect our brave troops and citizens. May God forever bless the United States of America. Merry Christmas and happy, victorious New Year. Slava Ukraini!
President Volodymyr Zelensky interrupted multiple times by standing ovations from both sides of the aisle, saying he hopes his words of gratitude and respect resonate in each American heart. Also saying the battle cannot be frozen, this battle cannot be postponed. Ukrainian courage and American resolve will turn the tide of the war in Ukraine. This as Congress gets ready to vote on some $45 billion in additional aid to Ukraine as the fight goes on in that country to try to repel Russian forces. Please tune in to Fox News Channel and this Fox station for continuing coverage of this story and others. I'm Brett Baer. Stay tuned for the all-new Lego Masters Holiday Bricktacular finale starting now on Fox.
This has been a Fox News special report.
Tonight, the 2-hour finale of Lego Masters Celebrity Holiday Bricktacular.
To the United States Congress, the Ukrainian battle flag.
We'll turn around.
Yes.
There we go. This flag was flown over the Capitol today in honor of the President's visit.
Thank you.
Tonight. We don't often see a lot of unity in that chamber, but tonight both sides seem to be mainly unified in their support of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian cause. He came to this body and said, I'm not looking for charity, I'm looking for an investment in global security. He entered to thunderous applause, what clocked in at 2 minutes, 20 seconds, a standing ovation. He gave thanks to the American people and government for their support. And he spoke bluntly about the horrors of war that his people have withstood. President Zelensky vowed that Ukraine's military will hold their lines and they will not surrender. There may have been a lot of truth in a joke he made saying, quote, is it enough? Not really. And ahead of the holiday, he promised that the Ukrainian people will celebrate the holiday defiantly and that all they want as a nation is victory.
Subject to the call of the chair.
That concludes this NBC News special report. Later tonight, please tune into our streaming service, NBC News Now, for the premiere of Life, Death, and Liberation inside Izium, Ukraine. That's at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. But right now, we return you to regular programming already in progress on NBC. I'm Lester Holt. Thank you for watching, and good evening.
Dolly Parton, Christmas, Dollywood.
The day after Christmas, 1941, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill addressed a joint session of Congress to outline the stakes of World War II. The conflict then and the conflict in Ukraine are not the same, but it seems more than coincidental, in fact strategic, that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky repeatedly referred to battles in World War II, even America's World War II president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to describe the stakes for the world in this particular conflict. I'm joined at the table by Face the Nation moderator and our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Margaret Brennan. Margaret, your impressions?
You know, it's incredible watching this exchange of flags here, Major, just to think that President Zelensky was literally on the front lines of a war zone in Bakhmut yesterday, in the east of the country, and now he is in the nation's capital. He is a wartime president giving what was a stirring address to Congress at a time when our politics doesn't feel very congratulatory of actually getting things done. One of the few points to now has been bipartisan. So the Speaker of the House just said something there.
That American flag flew over the U.S. Capitol today, taken as a prized possession by the leader of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, as part of a ceremonial and symbolically deeply important for Ukrainians exchange of flags, uniting, President Zelensky hopes, America to Ukraine, not just for calendar year 2022, but as he said, calendar year 2023, a turning point, and he predicted a year of victory.
It's a big prediction because they are shoring themselves up for what could be a Russian offensive in January or February, and the acknowledgement that while the war has not gone well for Russia, the UK estimates they've lost about 100,000 of their own troops to desertion or death or injury, that Vladimir Putin is continuing to double down. And so this brutal moment that Volodymyr Zelensky was describing of not losing faith, he was really seeking a connection there with the American people to hopefully keep that alliance there. He spoke in English. He rarely does that. And he appealed to that sense of holiday spirit, talking about, you know, even though we will be celebrating by candlelight, without electricity, without warmth, we know Americans want to share the warmth of their homes, that holiday spirit with us.
Margaret Brennan, thank you so very much. Our coverage will continue on CBS News Streaming, your local news, and for some of you, on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Major Garrett in Washington.
Yes, $6,000.
We'll turn around.
Yes.
There we go.
Proudly holding the American flag, the exchange of flags taking place. President Zelensky saying Ukraine will hold its lines, it will never surrender. that it was a great honor to speak before the U.S. Congress.
This flag was flown over the Capitol today in honor of the President's visit.
Thank you, sir. I will take it.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi obviously explaining to him that that is the flag that flew over the Capitol today to mark this historic visit of a wartime leader. As we have been reporting here, the first time a wartime leader since Winston Churchill has addressed the U.S. Congress. He said, "We have defeated Russia in the battle of minds of the world, and it gives us courage to keep going." He thanked America for the partnership from the very beginning. He talked about being outnumbered on the battlefield in every military aspect, troops, weaponry. But he said the Ukraine's defense is holding. There were multiple standing ovations in that room for President Zelensky as he made the case for continued partnership. Rachel Scott, who covers Congress, witnessing this as well. Rachel, described the scene there up on the Hill.
Truly a remarkable sense of bipartisanship, and one that we do not see very often here in Congress, as members are so divided, as this Congress is so divisive. But there you see it. Republicans, Democrats standing shoulder to shoulder, giving President Zelensky a standing ovation. You hear House Speaker Nancy Pelosi closing out this joint meeting of Congress. You could really hear a sense of urgency in Zelensky's voice, saying that what Congress decides right now will determine the outcome for future generations in Ukraine. He said the support from the United States is crucial. And of course, this comes at a very critical time as Congress is considering an additional $45 billion in aid to Ukraine, as Republicans are expected to take control of the House in just a matter of weeks. And you heard Zelensky there with a very strong warning of what would happen if support from the United States stopped. He said that it will be a matter of time before they strike your allies as well, that this is not charity, that it's an investment in global democracy. And he ended with that powerful moment, a really big sense of unity there. You had the two flags, one that flew over the Capitol here today, and then you had Zelensky handing that flag to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Vice President. David.
Rachel, President Zelensky telling lawmakers from both parties that your money is not charity, your money is an investment in democracy, in our fight to preserve our own fragile democracy in Ukraine. Terry Moran, you and I were talking earlier on the air about this particular leader and his ability to connect with people not only in his own country but around the world as he fights Russia on a very human level, talking about Christmas approaching. He said if Ukrainian families have to go to bomb shelters on Christmas Eve, so be it, but that these families would then gather for Christmas and for the future of Ukraine.
I mean, he's an electric performer. He had no preparation for public life aside from being an actor in a sitcom playing the president, and he met the moment that he was given, that this war by Russia in Ukraine, and he and his people have inspired the world with their defiance of Russian brutality. What he did tonight was attempt to connect their struggle for freedom and for their nation with the American story as well. Again and again, he referenced American history and tried to summon up that old sense in American politics that freedom fighters around the world deserve American support.
Terry Moran at the White House. Terry, our thanks to you as always. And as we bid you a good night, President Zelensky wishing the American people a Merry Christmas and a happy, victorious New Year, he said, insinuating obviously that Ukraine will have victory ahead in this year to come. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. For our viewers in the West, I'll be back here with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. Have a good night.
This has been a special report from ABC News. We now join our programming in progress.
This holiday, you can gift more and spend less at TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and HomeGoods. With more cheer.